All right. So with that being said, I'll keep it in a sicko mode. I just wanted to give out the DaBaby Appreciation Award. You know, that's what I wanted to do. With my time, I felt like this was perfect setting for us to do so. Shout out to DaBaby for saying what he said and saying it with the conviction that he said when he was on that stage for that crowd. Shout out to DaBaby. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it's important to say because not specifically for what he said. You know, I'm not. You know, some of the things, it's pretty detailed, so like that's very specific, so that might, add to like some hate speech if you want to say hate speech. And I feel like people need to stop with all this hate stuff or the idea of hate speech. I don't know. I feel like people need to get a little bit, I'm gonna stop at that. I'll stop at that point. Let me just end. But I was giving out the appreciation award to DaBaby because my man said what he said and did what he did, and then dropped the follow-up video to that doubled down on what he said and was even worse. And I'm giving an appreciation because that's coming off of him having the biggest song of his career, which was Rockstar, that probably just alienated all of the new fans. So that's why I gotta appreciate it, because at your highest of heights, my man said, fuck all this shit. Like my man just built a brand new home from scratch and put a big ass bulldozer right through that thing. Put it all the way down to the bottom, back to the foundation. We started again. You know what I'm saying? Like I can only appreciate that level of commitment to being yourself at all times. Because just taking it further into the psyche though, on something like none of the bullshit, but further into the psyche, it's just more so like the system of control and staying out of that part. Like, yeah, off of the mainline success and all that, you can literally fall into like a autopilot of just doing all of the quote unquote right things and getting all the branding and sponsorships and deals and working with all these different companies, having your own McDonald's meal and all these things that you can have like mainstream success with. Or you could be your motherfucking self and be like, you know what, fuck all this shit. Fuck you and your sponsorships. Fuck everybody that think that I should be whatever. And y'all wish y'all was me. Y'all wish y'all had the money I had. Y'all wish y'all could create your own company. Y'all wish y'all could do this, that, and the other. And I'm an entertainer. And I never said that I want to be a role model. All I care about is my child. And that's about it, and I didn't call the body and I'll catch another. You know what I'm saying? Like those are things that I can, I rock with, I can appreciate, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I just wanted to give a shout out and an appreciation to DaBaby for being your natural self. You know what I'm saying? So that is a statement by LG. That has nothing to do with anybody else on the podcast or on the Conversations with Nations, because they for sure trying to get they branding and sponsorship and shit like that. So don't think that it came from there. But I said that. I gave the appreciation. And the fire I rock with people that just be themselves, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not mad at that. I'd rather people show me who you are and make me make a decision from there, as opposed to just doing whatever sounds and feels good to making other people feel good, like, because for one thing, a lot of people don't know who the fuck they are. So why the fuck am I trying to make somebody feel good or feel better about themselves if it's only going to be a small glitch of happiness, you know what I'm saying, for them, and they'll be on to the next thing that they're sad about and need a uplifting about, you know what I'm saying? So like, it kind of that's where I fall at. I just like people being themselves, and then you can make a decision from there. That was all for my appreciation for DaBaby. I don't know if y'all have anything on that, if y'all want to stay away from that, but I just want to give some DaBaby love,
I'm curious which is it's so funny because when you texted me, I was like, everything but that last one. No, but and we just laughed about it. But at what point? So are things like, you know, the phobias, right? Homophobia, transphobia, the isms, the racism, sexisms, are those, is it classified as those things simply off of belief, or do you also need action to meet belief to be considered that? Like, are you racist based off of your beliefs, or are you racist because you believe something and you choose to act out in your life that way?
Good question.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is initial. It starts with belief in order to create an action. I don't think people lead with an action and then garner belief from it. I think you kind of get like you get their belief first, and a lot of that is passed down. So like if you grew up in uh, a certain area or around certain people or even in a certain household where this is a learned response to things, then you just regurgitate a lot of that same type of belief system. You know what I mean? So I think that's a lot of, until you come in contact with certain folks or certain things in certain settings, and you get a different learned response, you know, like from being immersed in a lot of what their culture and their ideas are, you know, what their ideologies are. So I think until you get that, then you more so just have like beliefs that can turn into actions.
Okay. So the reason here, let me give you context as to why I was thinking about it that way. Is one of my podcasts that I listen to weekly is called On These Hoes. And it's Kamira White and Precious Hall that are both from All Deaf Digital originally. I think
Precious.
I love Precious. She about to be out here in Dallas soon, so I'm hella juiced because I'm like, I'm for sure going to that show. But I love their podcast because they're very like, they're just very them. And it's so great. But they talked about the whole thing around DaBaby and T.I. and whatnot. And it was so interesting to me because I'm listening to their take on it, and they were very much like agreeing with T.I. and his stance on it. And then went into like this whole thing about, they weren't directly saying it, but they were talking about their beliefs around homosexuality. And so they were kind of just separating this thing of like, do what you want to do, but like, you know, we have to still teach our kids. And it was interesting because they went into the like the kids thing that y'all had talked about last week. But they're talking about like, you know, teach our kids still what's right and wrong, and certain things are natural, not natural, which I'm just saying what they're saying. I'm not saying where I land on it, because scientifically speaking, like, you have all the range of sexuality in nature, but nonetheless. And so they're going on this whole thing about it. And they're also doing the thing of like, you know, but like, believe what you want to believe. And then it was funny because I was like, it was so interesting that at the end, they always like read a listener's letter, and the producer picks it and they don't know what it is. So they go on this whole thing, they finish out the rest of their show, they get to the listener letter, and the listener letter is basically a gay woman that wrote in about how her family treats her poorly because she's gay and she lives in like the Bible Belt South. And their advice for her was more or less like, fuck them, like let them feel how they want to say. And sometimes you gotta like say stuff back. And so it was so interesting to me to go like, at what point, we're so big on labeling things in the West, and we want to throw everything under or whatever, right? So like, throughout watching that episode, there is a point where someone would probably label them homophobic. And then they would get to this letter and somebody would probably be like, well, I don't know, because they kind of having your back right now and telling you to like, that like, whatever you do is your business and who cares, and you're a great person, and like shit on your family if they shitting on you. So I'm kind of, that's where my question stemmed from, was like, is it what you believe, or is it your action? Because I also give like, there's just a certain age of a person where I go, they're gonna believe what they believe. It don't matter. That doesn't make them a bad person. Like if you're 40 and above, like your ideas about what is going on in society are pretty cemented. Like the same way I think for me, like trying to wrap my head around like the switching of pronouns and the trans community and things of all that nature, like that is something that is for my parents way too far removed. They're like that, yeah, there's no way I think they're ever gonna probably like fully wrap their head around that. But because I'm born however many years later and this is a newer thing, like so I go like each generation I feel like there's something new, but we also got to look and be like they 40 50 60, right? Like they didn't had enough change in their lifetime. Like, as long as they not hurt nobody, let them do their thing, you know what I'm saying? But sorry to circle back, it's kind of like where does the label actually happen? Is it what you think, or is it necessarily how you actually go out and act in the world?
Yeah, I think just because a lot of these things get tied into racism, and it always like tries to move into like race. I think a lot of like the um, plights and like problems that people have with like sexuality, they immediately want to jump into it being tied to something that has to do with race and like you know, Black African Americans issues with America and like the Jim Crow era and slavery and all that stuff. I think like all those things tend to be like a trampoline for a lot of these other issues, and I feel like they can't work synonymously. Like for me personally, so I hate that they get like sexuality is a preference of sorts to me personally. Like I mean that's like what you prefer to like prefer to be identified as and prefer to like do as a person and stuff like that. That's fine. Like what your sexual preference is beyond me. Like that's what can I say about that? There, of course, there's people that go out of their way to jump in on these topics, especially if they're overwhelmingly against it. Then they'll find a way to have an opinion about it. But I don't think that's any way, shape, or form similar to like somebody that's racist. Like I think like racist ideologies that you have is something that you should strictly work on. If you have a problem with somebody's sexuality or sexual preference, then that's something that you can work on. But I don't think that's something that you have to work on. I think you just have to make sure that you're not acting on anything that's like damaging to another human being because of those actions that they partake in. With that being said, I think there should be a longer leash for people that's not what they grew up knowing or understanding. All this pronoun stuff and how many letters get added on to that plus, those are things that's going to take time for people, you know what I'm saying? Like they say that they said that they have like these like open forums for you to like go to and know more about that community, and that's something that people that aren't from that community should do. But if that's something they have not done or they're not aware of it, and you're telling them to go out of their way to go to one of those forums to then find out more in order for them to have a better understanding when they do meet somebody from that community, so that they're not ignorant to whatever their plight is or what they want to be identified as initially, then you're asking a lot from the general public. You know, there's certain individuals that are like they overzealous and overdo everything. So yes, they'll go out of their way to do those things in order to make other people feel comfortable. But I think you're asking a lot of the public to do that for sexual preference and sexuality. Like whatever you identify as, people are identifying as everything now. So at this point, you can't even take anything at face value when it comes to sexual anything. Like, I don't know what the fuck you are. I don't know what you identify as. I don't know what you like. I also cannot say that I care so much, but I do care. I do care about what you care about. And I just want you to not feel uncomfortable around me because of something I said. Let me know if that was something that was uncomfortable, and then give me the freedom to then change my like not say it again, and also learn from that mistake. Don't just condemn me and cancel me from that point. But racism is completely different to me. Like I feel like that those ideologies is so outdated that part needs to be updated for everyone. I don't care how old you are. If you're if you're a racist, then I mean, by all means, if you're like 60, 70, 80, and you probably your family probably had slaves, then you know, like I'm not so much like I get it, and you're outgrowing with it. Okay, cool. But passing that to another individual and or getting mad at the individual if they have friends that are that of a different race or actually are dating somebody of a different race is something that you might need to check yourself on. That's just me personally, but I just feel like they shouldn't be tied together in any way. But I think that all the other communities tend to try to jump on the bandwagon of that particular plight and that part. Rubs me a little way, but that is what it is.
I feel that. And so like, is it, I think, well, not isn't, let me not ask that because it's more a statement. I think, well, one, I definitely separate the two as well. Like I separate racism for a lot of other isms, mostly because I go, it's too ingrained in the fabric of our society.
Mm-hmm.
Like in too much of the fabric of our society.
Mm-hmm.
Every system is so ingrained. So I go, it is a completely different problem. And I also go, to me, from looking at history from a like political or legislative space, I think I've seen Black people like complain, like, oh, well, like y'all will figure out all these rights and things for the LGBTQ plus community, but you won't address racist shit. And I go, to me, that's an indicator that like this is significantly more ingrained and it'd be much more difficult to actually address than some of these other liberties that at the end of the day, like they don't affect the structure of our society as much. And so it's easier to address an issue surrounding that community than it is to address an issue surrounding racism, because that means you would have to completely tear this shit down and rebuild it.